Arsenal 1, Manchester City 0, and Pep is bald. A fantastic win for the Arsenal, and we've definitely come quite a long way under Mikel Arteta. Criticised constantly. If it's not for his substitutions, it's for his goalkeeping options, and we'll get into that. But finally, we get to beat the bald guy. You know, he had a problem with Erik ten Hag, he had a problem with Pep Guardiola, and finally we get a win. It's only one win, but positive signs are there. We beat Manchester United, yes, in certain circumstances where a couple of minutes from the end, they had a goal which was offside, taken away from them and celebrating like crazy, understandably so. And then Arsenal went on to get 2 late goals. We weren't able to get the job done against Tottenham. And then now against Manchester City, we get the 1-0 victory. Yes, there was an issue in the first 20 minutes where the press of Manchester City caused us problems, the same way Lens caused us problems from pressing us quite high, especially with our goalkeeper possibly being a little bit dodgy. And not possibly, he was a little bit dodgy. And then I personally feel he was fantastic in the second half because Arteta, like he said in his post-match press conference, he gave Raya the confidence to continue doing what he was doing. Obviously, at the beginning of the second half, and then also the other opportunity that Alvarez had, that was problematic. But it's going to be the way that we're going to play, and we're going to have to accept it. We're just going to have to be very careful at times. But you could see in the second half, his passes was fantastic. So you can understand from that standpoint. And then Arteta also said that he dominated the box extremely well in the second half, which is what we saw. Very few opportunities, 4 opportunities or 4 chances that Man City had. I don't think any team does that. Even in the games that they've lost so far this season, they've had more than 4 opportunities at the opposition. And when they did have touches in the box, Saliba, Gabriel, they were there. A fantastic display from Arsenal. Ben White was excellent. Zinchenko was really good as well. And we do know that Manchester City has all these top players that causes Arsenal problems at all times. And then in the second half, when Pep made those 3 changes, is something that I want to make clear. They got on the ball and they were looking dangerous and they were looking like the old Man City, excluding Rodri and De Bruyne, of course. But they were, imposing themselves on the game like they have so many times against Arsenal in all these losses that we had against them. And it was fantastic to see the way that Arteta was able to make his own changes. So a triple substitution from Arteta as well in the second half, and Arsenal had control. What is clear for everyone to see is, first of all, Declan Rice was absolutely superb, was given the man of the match by Arsenal. Martinelli was given the man of the match by the Premier League, and I gave my man of the match to Gabriel Jesus. So once again, lots of players stood up. There wasn't any bad performances. Havertz, when he came on, was also decent. Again, I'm saying that when he plays as the 9 or withdrawn or false 9, then he is much better than the left 8 role. So I don't know what we're going to do with that going forward, especially if he's going to be playing most of the time the left 8 position. We're going to have to figure that one out because I feel Rice can play that, and Thomas Partey. When Thomas Partey came on, the control that we had was immense in terms of his passing ability. So once again, you can have Thomas Partey in the 6 role and Declan Rice either as a double pivot or as the left 8. And then Jorginho as well, despite that early yellow card, deservedly so, in terms of him getting booked. But as we saw, there was cover. But you don't want to have these players run at us because we've conceded goals against Man United. So we had to make that foul and get that yellow card. I thought he controlled the tempo of the game quite well as well, just prior to Thomas Partey coming on. But the key thing is when Thomas Partey did come on, the control that we had and that passing ability. So not just the octopus, his ability to track midfield runners, it's also his ability to get tempo into our passing as well. So that was really good to see, and excited for if Thomas Partey can remain fit for the rest of the season or most of the season, and then also being able to then interchange Declan Rice in the 6 and the 8 position. That's very positive for Arsenal. Odegaard is there. We still want Vieira and Smith Rowe to have some sort of an impact. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Smith Rowe, because there's a possibility that I think that he could end up being sold in January. Just watch out for that one. And then Concerning, obviously, Trossard, it's now been said that he went off injured at halftime, so he probably isn't quite there yet. We obviously have to push certain players. And I'm 4 minutes in and I haven't even announced Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka was, obviously, team news got leaked that he was in the squad. So prior to team news starting to come out, an hour and a half before the time, it was said that he was in the squad. So he was pictured travelling, obviously, probably to the team hotel or wherever they meet up, to the bus. So those eagle-eyed fans on Twitter did see him in obviously the same clothes that the other Arsenal players wore. So obviously he was then said to be in the squad. That doesn't mean that he's going to start. But anyway, there's obviously people on Twitter that said that he would be involved in the squad, and that was technically correct, but obviously Arteta didn't end up picking him. So we've got a problem on our wings, and it was fantastic to see Martinelli's second half display, because when he did come on, it was just another level. So Trossard is clearly injured or playing with a niggle, if I can call it that. And I know footballers always play with niggles, but it was prevalent to see that he just wasn't there. So he was obviously, you can call it poor in the first half. We didn't really get the ball there to him. It was mostly Ben White and Jesus on the right, and we caused them problems on that side because Gvardiol and Eke, who's normally terrific players, they were given all sorts of issues by Gabriel Jesus on that side of the field, on Arsenal's right side. So yeah, so the team that we selected, so obviously with Martinelli, excellent news that he was on the bench. Arteta said before the game that he just wasn't able to start, neither was Thomas Partey. And start in this type of a game, high intense, where you have to be at it the entire 90 plus minutes against Man City. So I could understand why Martinelli and Thomas Partey probably had 45 minutes in them, and they couldn't start the game because then they wouldn't be able to be impact, which they were. They were impact substitutes, and it worked because we won the game because of them. And then obviously Bukayo Saka wasn't able to make it. He apparently couldn't train yesterday. So there was some truth into what Arteta said on Friday in the press conference. Will Saka train on Saturday? That was not the case, and he was then not selected. So from that standpoint, again, you can understand everything. It was a very strange lineup. So the back five still the same. Raya in goal. Ben 10 out of 10, White right back, right centre back Saliba, left centre back Gabriel Magalhaes, and Zinchenko at left back. And then in midfield, we obviously had the change came here. So Jorginho, to try and allow Declan Rice to be everywhere. He then played the pivot. And then obviously Rice left 8, Odegaard right 8. The pressing from Arsenal was absolutely superb. They didn't stop pressing, and that is what allowed us to make sure that Man City don't have those easy opportunities. Yes, Man City, they're still a fantastic team. They weren't awful on the day. Arsenal were the better team for me, but they did have that first 20 minutes where they had some chances. Eke missing that opportunity, and then also Alvarez putting pressure on Raya. So they did have their chances, but it wasn't clear-cut per se. But first 20 minutes, they could have scored 1 or 2 goals, and then it's a whole different game, and then it's again a 3-1 win for them, or 4-1 or whatever, another comfortable win. So luckily we were then able to not get them to score that early, and then from there onwards we were looking good. Our front three, obviously surprising that it was Trossard on the left now, and then Jesus on the right, and then through the middle, but it worked. Nketiah worked extremely hard. I'm sure Trossard worked hard as well on the left back, and then obviously on the right, left wing, and then on the right wing was Jesus and Nketiah. So they all worked extremely hard from the front, tried to create opportunities for Arsenal, and it was a very tactical game. Sometimes the game slowed down because the teams are so similar. It was actually quite weird to watch. But fantastic stuff from that standpoint. And then obviously the substitutes made a difference. Tomiyasu made a difference. Thomas Partey made a difference when he came on. And then obviously Havertz, I thought, did really well in the 9 role. And then who else came on? And then obviously Martinelli came on at halftime as well. So he was also superb. So really, really encouraging stuff to see. There's definitely been improvement. Last season, mistakes galore in the 3-1 home loss to Man City. Then obviously we got thumped when we had nothing more to give at the Etihad. They just obviously won the league there in that game. And then obviously the Community Shield, no chances for Haaland and no chances in this game. I do understand that De Bruyne has obviously been injured, and Rodri wasn't there. When Rodri plays, they are a different team, but we had to get the result. And the likes of Doku, Grealish didn't come on. They had the ability to be dangerous coming on as substitutes, but it just showed you that Arsenal squad is there. We've got the squad. Lots of people are saying we don't have the squad. Are they crazy? Because City had one or two kids on the bench. I know they still have very expensive. They've got a 100 million player on the bench, and they've got a 60 million player, Doku, on the bench. Arsenal also had a couple of 60 million pound players on the bench, and they made an impact, and that is the key thing. So, very good win for Arsenal. Man City had the opportunities in the first 20 minutes, didn't take them. And then obviously Arsenal were fantastic in the second half. It was probably close in the first half, but I thought Arsenal were the better team in the second half. Pep is bald, as they say. So international break now. There's some stories going around. First of all, we haven't heard about Trossard yet. Maybe there's news by now, but I'm assuming he might then be not selected for Belgium. He was selected in their squad. And then obviously no Ben White for England, and now no Saka as well. So Saka, it's been confirmed that... No, it's not been confirmed yet. Saliba has been confirmed. He's got a toe problem. So it's been confirmed that he won't go on international duty. Saka and Trossard might be confirmed today. Martinelli wasn't selected. Like 2 weeks ago when Brazil announced the team, Martinelli wasn't selected. Jesus and Gabriel Magalhaes, they are both selected. Kivio has been selected for Poland. Jorginho not selected for Italy. I think his international career might be done. El Neni's been selected for Egypt, for example. Obviously, Ødegaard for Norway is the captain. Raya for Spain. So lots of Arsenal players have been selected for their national teams, but there's also a good core that's not been selected. So Saka, Saliba, Martinelli, very likely Trossard as well, are not selected for their national teams. And Ketia, Jesus are. Nelson will stay behind, Smith Rowe will stay behind, Vieira will stay behind, and then obviously the other one is Thomas Partey. He has been selected in the Ghana team, but we'll see if it is that he ends up going. He might, I think they're playing, I don't know where it is, but they're playing Mexico and the USA, same as Germany, in friendlies in this upcoming international break. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I'm sure there's going to come out news with regards to players that's not going to go, that were selected, but they're not going to go on international break. So we have to be a little bit smarter, especially if it is that we want to keep these guys fit, the key players. We have to be smarter like other teams are. Rashford now and then doesn't go. Some of the Liverpool players are constantly not going on international duty, and then Haaland, he goes, doesn't always play. So we have to be smart when it comes to when we are actually going to be allowing these players to go out. So we'll see how that one goes. And then after the international break, key that Arsenal are... I don't know, are we playing the Sunday? Hopefully we're playing the Sunday against Chelsea. So Chelsea away, Stamford Bridge. We've won there the last 3 times. They are improving. They beat Brighton. A struggling win, but they beat them still. Then they beat Fulham, I think it is. And then they comfortably beat Burnley. So none of those teams are Arsenal. Brighton obviously does well against Arsenal. But, so Chelsea's got a bit of steam going, and they're at home. And Pochettino, history with Arsenal, he's actually got a decent record against Arsenal. Couple of draws at Stamford, at the Emirates, and wins at Old White Hart Lane and New White Hart Lane. So even though we think that Chelsea are in the mud, it will still be a very difficult game. And then obviously Arsenal have Sevilla away. They've just sacked their coach. So you can't really say new manager bounce, because they'll play with a new manager on the weekend that Arsenal play Chelsea. And then we go to Sevilla, the Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium, for a very important Champions League game after a Champions League loss against Lens. So it's going to be a huge game. We need something out of that game. And then I think it's Sheffield United. And then it is West Ham away at the London Stadium. That is a Declan Rice derby. That is in the Carabao Cup. So hopefully with changes we can get through. And then we'll just see how it goes. I think it's then Newcastle United away after that. So other than Chelsea away, Newcastle away, I think we have a run of 6 games before we play Aston Villa and Brighton. That's winnable games, the likes of Luton that we are playing and those type of teams. So the next 6 games is going to be very interesting for Arsenal. Let's hope there's not too much issues after the international break. And we take it as it comes, as they say. Come on, you Arsenal. Fantastic win against Pips, the Mancunians of Manchester Blue, I call them. So we've beaten the Mancunians of Manchester Blue, and we've beaten the Mancunians of Manchester Red. Just also note that we've got to play all these teams away in the second half of the season. They have to play Tottenham, Man United, and Man City away the second half of the season. That's going to be tricky, but hopefully we are much better in the second half of the season, and hopefully 1 or 2 interesting signings in January. Come on, you Gunners!
Cadence.